is Lindsay Bell, CFRA analyst, and Lanhee Chen, Hoover Institution research fellow. Lindsay, I'll start with you. Very interesting and clever gamesmanship, sending Trudeau over to speak to Nancy Pelosi directly. I was like, why are those two meeting? Oh, right, because it's being held up right now in the House. She hasn't set a date. Canada's already introduced it to their legislature. Mexico has already passed it. So the ball is in her court. What do you think that conversation was like?
Yeah, I mean, how embarrassing will it be if the U.S. can't ratify this agreement and Canada and Mexico get it done before us? I mean, it's good to see that there is progress being made and that Trudeau is speaking to Pelosi and hopefully instilling some good intentions with her. And hopefully we could see them move forward on this because we need to see this uncertainty, this one trade uncertainty removed from the market.
Lanhee, do you think that this is markedly better than NAFTA that it's replacing?
Look, I think there are some improvements in this USMCA deal, and frankly, I think the protections for labor and environmental issues are actually quite strong in this proposed deal, which is why I'm a little confused that it's been sidetracked. But absolutely, it would be a huge boon to the United States to be able to get this across the finish line, not the least of which is because we have a lot of trade between the United States, Mexico, and Canada that would be enhanced by this deal. And frankly, not having a deal creates some significant drag, not just for the companies who have to deal in this space, but for the economy and for growth more generally. So I think it's an important deal, and I do hope Congress moves to act on it soon.
Okay, don't move, guys. Let's go back to Connell in Beijing. Connell.
So consumers, Melissa, impacted by trade. We asked the people here in China about the influence of the trade war on purchasing American products like Apple products. Take a listen.
To be honest, I really like using Apple products.
Okay,
I didn't have the preference for where the products are made.
What type of phone do you have?
Huawei.
From the middle class in China, they are not so much price sensitive, so that won't actually influence us so much.
If the brand is convenient or good for my life, I will choose it.
Lindsay and Lanhee are still with us. And, Lanhee, I'll start with you on this one. There's a lot of news surrounding Apple today, but on the consumer side here in China, I found it interesting that there's not a whole lot of, nationalist backlash against the company, but Apple's run into a lot of competition here. It's a very expensive product, and there are Chinese companies, not only Huawei, but others that give them some stiff competition. Seems to be the real issue for Apple, at least for consumers.
Yeah, it's interesting, Connell. One of the parts of this trade war, trade dispute that I think has turned over the last couple weeks is a sense that the Chinese government, particularly Xi Jinping, is trying to use the nationalist angle more to play to his own domestic audience in China, essentially saying to them, look, this has become a matter of national pride. And so it will be interesting to see whether what the reaction you're getting there, if it's a short-run reaction, if in the longer run, it's really going to hurt American companies like Apple. But there's no question that the longer this trade war goes on, the longer this dispute goes on, the more likely it is that China is going to use that nationalist rhetoric to try and bolster its own position in the negotiation.
They may be trying to. In fact, I think it's fair to say, Lanhee, that they are trying to. But, Lindsay, you just don't see the response from people to that. But they will respond, like people anywhere in the world, to price pressure. And then Apple has to respond to the tariffs. And that might be the bigger story here. Apple looking to move much of its manufacturing, or a third of it, on the iPhone side, according to reports, outside of China. That's the kind of permanent move that even if we get a trade deal, don't you think that, it's not like they could snap their fingers and go back. Apple's so big. If they commit to that, that's pretty much the way they're going, right?
Absolutely. It is interesting. We saw last week Foxconn, which is the biggest manufacturer of iPhones that operates in China, saying that they're willing to back Apple and move out of the country. They're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in India and other places, looking at Vietnam to manufacture these phones. And if Foxconn leaves China, they're going to take with it a lot of jobs. And I think even if a trade deal gets done sooner rather than later, or if Apple is left out of it, they're still going to have pressure on companies like Apple to really think about their supply chain going forward. And there may be pressure to really remove themselves from that country.
Yeah, and that might be the bigger story in trade is that these supply chains and these stories, they just don't go back to the way they were, even if a deal is signed. Lindsay and Lanhee, thank you to both of you. We appreciate it. As we move on here, more from Beijing with our special coverage of China this week and what residents on the ground think about the trade war and future relations between the U.S. and China. More live from Beijing coming up, Melissa.
Plus, a direct attack on a U.S. military asset. More on the latest provocation from Iran amid already heightened tensions in the Middle East. Why officials fear the escalating conflict could be on the brink of war. And searching for answers, the FBI taking new action after at least 11 Americans mysteriously died at hotels in the Dominican Republic this year. We are live on the ground with the latest coming up.
Think twice and think hard about going. You don't think it's going to happen to you. It does. Me personally and the family, no, we're never going to the Dominican Republic again.
This program is brought to you by Fisher Investments.
All money managers might seem the same, but some give their clients cookie-cutter portfolios. Fisher Investments tailors portfolios to your goals and needs. Some only call when they have something to sell. Fisher calls regularly, so you stay informed. And while some advisors are happy to earn commissions whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. Maybe that's why most of our clients come from other money managers. Fisher Investments, clearly better money management.
Metastatic breast cancer is relentless, but I was relentless first. Relentless about learning the first song we ever danced to.
About teaching him to put others first. About helping her raise her first child.
And when I was first diagnosed,